All right, so today we're diving into something pretty heavy. The challenges of leaving a life of crime behind.
Yeah, it's a lot tougher than people might think.
It really is. And to unpack all of this, we're going to look at the story of Darren Gee, a former, well, he was a gangster, and his attempts to go straight.
Right, and he puts it all out there in this YouTube video, no holds barred.
It's a wild ride, for sure, and it really highlights just how hard it is to escape your past, even when that's what you really want.
Absolutely, and he really gets into it right off the bat with this whole thing about changing his name.
Oh, right. He wanted to become, what was it, Darren Trainer?
Darren Trainer, yep, wanted a clean slate, a fresh start.
Seems logical, right? New name, new you. But it didn't quite go as planned.
Not at all. The authorities, they weren't having it. Fought him tooth and nail to make sure everyone knew that Darren Trainer was actually Darren Gee.
Can you imagine trying to build a new life, but the system itself seems determined to keep dragging up your past?
Talk about an uphill battle.
It's like they were making a point of it, you know? Like they didn't want him to forget who he used to be.
You can really hear the frustration in his voice when he talks about it in the video.
Oh, totally. He even talks about just wanting to do normal things like go to the doctor's office or apply for a job without raising eyebrows. Imagine not even being able to get a parking ticket in peace without it being a whole thing.
Exactly.
And then on top of all that, he had to deal with being labeled a grass.
Ah, yes, grass. Now, for our listeners who might not be up on their UK slang, that's basically their word for a snitch, a police informant.
And it's not just a casual insult, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. In that world, especially over in the UK, where the term's from, that's one of the worst things you can be. It's about way more than just losing respect.
Yeah, G actually talks about how serious it is. He even mentions some pretty high-profile figures who put a price on his head because of this rumor.
Right, it's about safety, even survival. And the thing is, often these accusations are made with zero evidence.
And G, he always insisted he wasn't a grass, right?
Adamant about it. He even goes on a bit of a rant in the video, directly challenging anyone who calls him that. He's like, if I was on a wing with you now, would you call me that?
Intense.
Definitely. But that's what it comes down to, the weight of that label, that constant fear, the looking over your shoulder. It follows you everywhere, even behind bars.
And speaking of prison, G doesn't exactly paint a pretty picture of life inside.
No, not at all. He describes it as this pressure cooker of paranoia, everyone watching each other, waiting for the other shoe to drop.
He actually mentions how he tried to avoid getting involved with any particular gang, just to keep a low profile, stay out of trouble.
Which, in a way, is its own survival strategy in that environment,
How so?
Well, aligning yourself with one group might offer some protection, but it also puts you in the crosshairs of all their rivals. And as G found out, even trying to stay neutral doesn't guarantee your safety when you've got that grass label hanging over your head.
So no easy answers there. But even in that environment where trust is in short supply and danger is always around the corner, G stumbles upon a moment of, well, I guess you could call it human connection.
You're talking about John Smith, right?
Yeah, John Smith. He was a powerful inmate, well-respected, and despite all the rumors about G, he actually treated him with a surprising amount of kindness.
It's an interesting turn of events, and it all stems from this simple act of kindness. John Smith lending G a book.
And that book, as we'll see, ends up having a much bigger impact than either of them could have imagined.
It's like a catalyst.
So, we've got G already on edge, trying to distance himself from his past. And then he ends up reading this book about GCHQ, basically this super secret government organization whose whole thing is surveillance.
Talk about adding fuel to the fire.
Seriously, he's trying to escape this life of crime and then bam! He finds out he's probably being watched even when he's trying to play by the rules.
It really makes you question, right? Like, how do you truly start over when you feel like someone's always looking over your shoulder?
And it's not just that they might be watching, it's the way they were doing it back then that's really creepy. This whole 1,000 words thing he talks about.
Oh, yeah, that's straight out of a spy thriller. Apparently, GCHQ had this list, 1,000 words to be exact.
1,000 words. Okay, I'm already creeped out.
And if any of those words popped up in, say, a phone call or an email, that was it. Red flag, automatic monitoring. He gives the example of drugs. Just a casual mention, and you might have found yourself under the microscope.
Man, it's like 1984 in real life. And this is back in the early 2000s, right? Can you imagine what those lists, those algorithms look like now?
I don't even want to think about it. It really makes you wonder if there's such a thing as a private conversation anymore, even in your own home.
For sure. And for G, with his past, that realization must have been a gut punch.
Hmm.
Like here he is trying to fly straight, but there's this invisible eye following his every move.
It's like a catch-22. You're trying to rebuild your life, prove you're not that person anymore, but the very system that's supposed to help you reintegrate is watching your every move.
It's heavy stuff. But G, being G, he doesn't just sit back and take it. He files this Data Protection Act request, basically demanding that the government show him everything they have on him.
And what they hand over is a stack of documents that would make anyone paranoid, confirmation that they were watching him even while he was locked up.
No way. They were monitoring him in prison, too.
Oh, yeah. Logs of his phone calls, his visitors, even who he stood next to in the yard.
You've got to be kidding me. That's insane. What more could they possibly want to know?
That's just it, right? It makes you wonder what they're really looking for. And here's the kicker. A lot of the information was redacted, blacked out.
Wait, they wouldn't even let him see everything in his own file. What could be so sensitive that they had to hide it from him?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? What are they so afraid of him finding out? It just adds another layer to this whole thing, you know?
It's like something out of a movie.
Yeah.
And it makes you think, if this is what they're doing to someone like G, someone they're already watching, what are they capable of doing with the information they collect on everyday people?
Exactly. And that's what's so unsettling about surveillance in general. It often starts with a specific target, someone deemed a threat. But once those systems are in place, once the technology is there, it's only a matter of time before it expands, before it becomes a part of everyday life.
It's kind of scary when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Even behind bars, he couldn't escape the system. It makes you wonder, what's the point of going straight, of trying to turn your life around, if they're always going to treat you like a threat?
Yeah, it really makes you question the whole idea of rehabilitation, you know? How are you supposed to move on, build a new life, when every step you take is being tracked and analyzed?
It's like you said before, catch-22.
Exactly. And G's story, it's not just some isolated thing, you know? It's a window into this bigger issue of surveillance, privacy, and how the digital age makes it almost impossible to escape your past.
It's like we're all on this tightrope between security and freedom these days.
Right, and it makes you think, in our rush to be safe, are we losing something even more important? What happens to a society that's always looking over its shoulder, always suspicious of its own people?
Tough questions, for sure. But going back to G, he was facing an uphill battle, no question. Trying to leave his old life behind, but it's like society, the system. They had him trapped.
It shows how much harder it is now in the digital age for people trying to outrun their past. It's not like you can just change your name or move to a new town and disappear anymore. That digital trail, it follows you.
It's a lot to process. Darren Gee's story might seem kind of far out, but it's real. And it's happening to a lot of people who are just trying to get their lives together. It makes you think twice about the choices we make online, the information we share, the kind of world we're making, you know, not just for us, but for our kids and grandkids.
Definitely something to think about.
If there's one thing we can learn from all this, it's that the fight for privacy, for the right to start over, is more important now than ever. So the next time you hear someone say, "I've got nothing to hide," remember Darren Gee and what he went through. And then ask yourself, at what cost?